Hey guys, so today we'll be taking a break from looking at Debian / Ubuntu based distributions, and today we'll be looking at Fedora version 20 for the desktop, more specifically the 64-bit version. Now, I asked long-time commenter Panic at the Apollo on which distribution I should take a look at next, and he gave me a choice between two. It was either Fedora or a distribution which many of you might not have heard of called QNX. And I decided to pick Fedora because at first I wanted to do QNX, but it isn't an open source distribution, and getting a hold of the license was a little bit tricky for this, so I thought I might hop on the Fedora bandwagon here. Now, Fedora was the second distribution I ever used, and that was about 5 years ago, back when possibly even more than that actually, 6, 7, when I started university, and I had a laptop that was an old laptop that belonged to someone I knew who gave it to me, and I had to basically fix it up, and not having too much money, being a student and all, I had to fix it up with a free distribution, and one of the distributions that actually worked out of the box was Fedora. In fact, at this particular time, not even Ubuntu worked directly out of the box on this one. So this was a particularly old laptop. Just to give you an idea of how old it was, it didn't come with any kind of wireless hardware attached to it. It was that old. So yeah, I decided to install Fedora on it after trying about 5 other distributions, all of which failed to recognize the hardware, which was even quite old at that time, and older hardware on Linux does tend to get recognized quite easily. But anyway, maybe it was obscure hardware or whatever. Anyway, I got on with it quite well, actually. Of course, the trouble with Fedora that Ubuntu and other distributions of that ilk tend to try and overcome is that it doesn't come bundled with media codecs and sort of closed source codecs and the like. But anyway, we'll have a look as we go. So this is the website. It's fedoraproject.org. I will of course put a link to it down in the description below. The second time I used Fedora was a time when I used it quite a lot. It was used on a server, believe it or not, for a small office of about 7 computers, if I remember correctly, and we set this server up on a complete shoestring. Of course, if it was a more serious server for a larger office, we'd have used something like Red Hat, or even if we were on a budget, maybe CentOS. But the person who was my line manager at the time wanted something with a bit more bleeding edge software on it, and was prepared to put up with the aggro of, you know, less stable software. Now, Fedora has always been given the sort of the stereotype of it being the beta version of Red Hat, and that to a degree is true. A lot of what they want to try out, a lot of what they're thinking of putting in Red Hat, and a lot of what they're thinking of developing for Red Hat often gets sort of beta tested through Fedora. That's almost like almost why it exists in the capacity that it does. But then again, of course, that does mean that it has some corporate backing, which gives it a degree of stability and reliability as well. So anyway, enough of my banter. Let's crack on with the distribution now. So I'm running the 64-bit version, as I mentioned. I've got it right here, and I've just booted into the live CD. So, there is a slight graphical glitch, which I will point out as we go. It's most likely due to the virtual machine, though, rather than the actual distribution itself. I'm usually quite forgiving of little graphical bugs like that when trying out distributions, because, you know, like I say, these distributions are open source, they're free, they give you the ability to build on and improve it. So I don't like to sort of be too critical of them. Because of that factor. If they were charging money for it, then I'd certainly be, if there was something wrong with them, I would certainly put my my critical side up to full cynicism, as it were. But like I say, I'm more than happy to point out little flaws and things like that. That's generally how I go about with these reviews, but I don't tend to sort of be as aggressive or assertive when it comes to criticizing distributions for them, for obvious reasons, rather than just sort of flag them up and let you know they're there, rather than anything else. Okay, so we can try Fedora on the live CD, or we can install it to hard drive. Okay, well let's try it out on the live CD first. I haven't had an install yet to run through. Usually when I do a trial run, I just sort of trial run the live CD, then I record and then kind of go in blind. Okay, so you can see this little graphical glitch here. This is simply what I think it is. It's just the mouse interacting with the system in the emulator. So I wouldn't believe that to be there in a final install. And right, so this is the all too familiar GNOME 3 desktop, and I don't really have that much experience with it, truth be told. I'm not a fan of it. Really, for kind of the same reasons that I'm not a fan of Unity. Okay, admittedly, Unity is buggier. Unity has sort of almost been restarted several times, or it certainly had a lot of large development changes, many of which were not completely visible to the end user as well. GNOME 3 is in a more steady direction, and it's got a more regular development history, as it were. And it is less buggy, and it is a bit more user-friendly, and I certainly enjoy it more than Unity, but I don't like user interfaces that involve you having to move your mouse all across the screen to do the most simple of tasks. Case in point, right? I'm here, booted up, right? So I've got the time on top. I like the idea that it's one bar, right? When you've got two task bars, you start eating up just too much screen real estate. Really, you don't need any more than one taskbar. And a lot of people auto-hide that one taskbar, and I can certainly see why. Just to get the screen real estate is pretty nifty. I know a lot of people mention that when they run on high widescreen resolutions, they don't mind the Unity bar on the left-hand side. It doesn't eat into the real estate too much, but I don't run particularly high resolutions because a lot of my my screens actually don't. Well, they go up to 1080, but it's straining things a bit on the monitors that I've got. Anyway, so we've got GNOME 3 here. We've got the on button, off button, power button, whatever, volume. Pretty standard GNOME setup. In fact, one of the things about Fedora that I've noticed over the past few distributions is that it doesn't do much with the initial interface. Now, there are many remixes, I think they call them, or spin-offs, which is basically just the same old Fedora but with a different desktop environment. This GNOME is the standard one, and I picked the standard one partly because it is the flagship distribution. It's the one that I like to review first because, of course, it's the one they like to put front and center, put the most work in, and so forth. But also, I haven't done a review of a GNOME desktop, and I was thinking about doing Ubuntu GNOME Edition, and I may do Ubuntu GNOME Edition certainly after this one to compare the two, actually, to see how they measure up. So if you click on the you can sort of have a bit of fun with the calendar. Can you open the calendar? It's got its Fedora has its own mouse icon, which I believe it is quite famous for, although they have changed it substantially over the years. And like I say, when it comes to loading times, boot up times, and things like that, don't take them too seriously on these sort of tutorials or whatever, because like I say, I'm running this in a virtual machine, and as such, it's running everything directly off the hard disk drive, so that means some things are going to be faster, some things are going to be slower than they would be. Okay, so it's an evolution-based calendar. I just wanted to know whether or not you could say link your Google Calendar in, because to me, Google Calendar, it's the only way to go. It's the easiest and most straightforward way that you can sync a calendar across multiple devices, as well as sharing a calendar with friends. And of course, a lot of people already have Google accounts, maybe from YouTube or something else. So a lot of people can have easy access to it as well. Just my experience. But there is yet to be a serious competitor to a lot of Google products. It concerns me a little because I don't like to see monopolies, but Google is certainly taking a lead here. Okay, anyway, so. Like I say, one of the things I don't like about these sort of almost Unity, sort of tablet-esque user interfaces. When I say tablet-esque, I mean user interfaces that look like they're geared more towards tablet or touchscreen users than they are towards traditional mouse PC style users. But I don't like the idea that, okay, you click on Activities, which is a strange thing to name the main menu. If you wanted to switch desktops, right, you have to go all the way to Activities, all the way back across the other side of the screen, and then select it here. That's a lot of mouse movement for a minor task, something which would actually be included straight there on the taskbar. LXDE would do that in one click. This requires two, and moving your mouse all the way from the left to the right of the screen. Might sound like a little gripe, but when you're doing it day in, day out, and when you switch desktops quite a lot, yeah, you're kind of supposed to use. I kind of get the feeling that they want you to use more keyboard interaction than mouse interaction. But I've got a trackable mouse, so I'm like really happy with my mouse setup, and it allows, you know, I've got that sorted, right? I understand that the traditional moving about your mouse type thing isn't always, you know, to me it's a bit of an outdated way of doing things. I think trackable is definitely the way forward, and the reason why more people don't do it is because more people don't really want to learn how to ride a bike a second time, as it were, if you know what I mean. Because you kind of have to learn how to use a mouse again from scratch when you switch over to a trackable, but the end result is certainly worth it in my personal opinion. But anyway, that said, and again, yeah, with the trackable, to be honest, this is actually easier because you're actually moving less of your body anyway. But there, and also with the menu, if I wanted to go to my settings, it's, you know, activities, opposite side of the screen there. Utilities, which could easily end up at the other opposite end of the screen. You know, it's click, you know, there's a lot of clicking and going through menus. And like I say, if this was on a tablet, it would be fantastic. It'd be a great user interface for a tablet. And I have a feeling that because Linux has always traditionally struggled with the gaming market, I think that they're actually kind of edging their bets a little more towards the mobile platforms, and I think that's a mistake. I think Android are about as good as it's going to get now. I think that, yeah, Linux can compete with Android, and it can potentially become a better operating system than Android, and I would actually argue that it already is. I think that it's not going to get the market share that it wants. I think it's better off sticking to a strong focus on PC, and I'm not the only one that thinks that. Many other distributions are trying to preserve the integrity of the PC builds that we've come to know and love as well. Okay, so let's get on with an install. So we can go to activities, and I think that's the one for install to hard drive, yeah. So, like I say, I'm all too familiar with the Ubuntu installs, but what's Fedora going to do to us? Now, like I say, last Fedora install that I have personally done was probably the one way back at uni. Is that 6 or 7? So we're on to number 20 now, so, you know, they've certainly brought out a heck of a lot of releases, so there are probably going to be a lot of changes. I'm sure I must have installed a Fedora at some point since then, solely just to try it out and test it out. Maybe again on a virtual machine or something. Oh, not too sure. It's always been on my to-do list. Now, what have we got here? Is it? Okay, just taking a while to get going. So, a lot of the Linux heads that I know IRL, who are, should we say, a little more senior, a little more older than myself, tend to be fans of the old Red Hat. It's certainly a family of distributions that have a history of being reliable, a history of being secure, and a history of running servers effectively. So a lot of people I know use Fedora for their desktop machines simply because they want to inherit those positive characteristics. And you can sort of see why. I mean, if you're familiar with the RPM package management system, which again is a fine package management system, certainly one that rivals DPKG, why not? Why not? I mean, these people love Red Hat based distributions for the exact same reasons why I love Debian based distributions. Debian is a little more on the community side of things, I would say, and Fedora's a little more on the corporate side, but that changes now. Ubuntu's mixed that up a lot, I guess, and there still is a lot of community interest in Red Hat based distributions, not only from Fedora, which is often given the title of being the most popular community distribution that comes out of the Red Hat family, but also CentOS, CentOS is like the Debian of this particular family. CentOS is like Red Hat, but for people that don't want the corporate backing. Okay. Hey guys, and welcome back. So what I did was quickly switched off the virtual machine and added some more memory and a couple more processor cores, and decided to restart the install process simply because it was looking a little on the sluggish side, and it appears to have sped things up and made things a little bit more smoother now. So what have we got here? This is the partitioning part of the install process. So we've got the English UK keyboard, network configuration. It's a wired connection, or that's certainly how the virtual machine recognizes it. Automatic partitioning selected. So let's have a look here. Select the devices you want to install to. This is the VirtualBox hard disk. We can, of course, add in network disks and all that kind of stuff. But let's just go with the standard procedure, right? No disk selected. We have to click. That doesn't look right. Yeah, there we go. Okay, right, installation. You have 8 of free space, which is enough to install Fedora. Would you like to? I can automatically configure Fedora installation to the disk selected, or you can review modify partitions. Let's continue. And it shouldn't it be happy with that? Yes. Okay, so that's a little more unusual. A little more steps than the Ubuntu, but nothing that can't be worked out. The old root password. So yeah, Fedora of course has a root account and a non-root account, so it uses a slightly different way of a weak password, too short. Crikey. This is only for a virtual machine. It's a weak password. It fails the dictionary check. Okay. I am... Good gravy. Okay, right. Okay, right. You happy with that? Oh right, okay. So it'll say I can pick it. I can pick a pretty dumb password, but you have to click done. You have to click done again. Okay. So no user will be created. All right, we don't need to do that, but you can select, you can create users, you can create roots, and the idea is that when you're actually doing your day-to-day work, you use your user account, but if you wanted to change system settings and install new software, you'd log out of your user account and then log in as root. So it'd be 2 separate accounts, whereas with Ubuntu, you just add in the root password. There is an ongoing debate which way is better. To me, I personally prefer the convenience of Ubuntu's method. But that being said, Ubuntu's method's probably secure enough for desktop PCs. If you're running a server or you're running a machine that people are likely to try and crack into, then maybe you might want to take a more serious stance on security in terms of how your accounts are managed. But unless someone's actually going to break into your house and try and crack your machine there and then, there's a good chance that there's a more than likely chance that it'll cause you more hassle than it will save you. Okay, so I just skipped ahead in time a little bit just to avoid you the boredom of having to wait for the complete install process to happen. But yeah, now we are just finishing up here. It's configuring the install system and so forth. Just finished writing to bootloader, that kind of thing. And then we can get rebooting and into the system itself. Now, usually there isn't really much difference between the actual system and the live CD, but I usually like to run through the install process just to give you an idea of how easy it is to install, all the different installers, their options, and by and large the installer is a good way to get a feel of the kind of user, the kind of end user that they're expecting to pick up their system. So in order to get the best out of Fedora, I have been told by many of the community members that you need to make the best of external repositories, the unofficial repositories. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of extra software being put into Fedora, but a lot of it is done through the external stuff, through external repositories. Okay, so Fedora is now successfully installed on your system and ready to use. When you are ready, reboot your system to start using it. Good stuff. Good stuff indeed. Okay, so we reboot our system. We do that from up here, I'd imagine. And the live CD should be automatically ejected from the virtual machine. So for all intents and purposes, okay, so this actually looks like the live CD again. So what I have to do is just simply go into the virtual machine and manually eject the CD. There we go, and just reboot again. Usually not a biggie. There we go, and we can start the rescue process, or we can start the operating system as normal, which is the default one. So also the splash screen, not as fancy as the Ubuntu ones, as we often see. This is a bit of a double-edged sword in a lot of ways, because Ubuntu and its fancy splash screens have come up against a lot of bugs as a result of NVIDIA, the open source version of the NVIDIA drivers clashing with it, basically. Oh no, actually even the NVIDIA drivers themselves, I think. Anyway, if you have a NVIDIA card, you kind of have a problem with the fancy splash screens, or at least you used to. I've not seen that problem happen in about a year, so they probably have fixed that. So, English United Kingdom, good stuff. Input sources, yep. Full name, yep. Username, I usually just have Chris as my username. Yeah, no need to make it more complicated than it has to be. I know. Yeah. Computer, that's right, start using Fedora. Let's put on our Trilby. I done a funny there. Okay, so, sometimes when I'm running it through a virtual machine, it'll revert to a 640 by 480 resolution, and then you have to install a add-on for the virtual machine to actually get it to work. But you don't have to do that on this particular operating system. You also don't have to do it on Mint either. So, let's crack it open. Let's see what we got. Yeah, identical to the live CD. What I like is that they've got frequent applications there, so you can, you know, you'll have your. Most people don't really use more than 6 to 8 applications regularly, maybe 12, but that's enough to easily fit the icons on the screen. But as you can see, there is a very real resemblance to Android here. You can install the software. So let's have a look at the software center. So cracked into it pretty quickly. Obviously it's still loading the thumbnails and what have you. I can of course have a look at the installed things. Now, like I say, I'm not entirely sure because of the virtual machine and all that. The times here, the loading times, may or may not be representative of the final install of an operating system on a standard computer / hard drive setup. Likely, in most cases, they will probably be slower because I've shortened the allocation, you know, the allocated resources quite a lot because I've got to record it as well. I usually record these when I've got maybe something else uploading in the background or whatever. So. So don't be too harsh on operating systems that do take a while to load, but it does look like we are having a bit of a hiccup with Fedora 20. Software is up to date. That's quite nice. Ah, here we go. So it's just taking its time to load. It could very well be down to my silly little rural broadband connection as well. Often it decides to... I'm recording this on a Friday evening, so... because this is how I like to spend my Fridays, you know? Because yeah, I'm wild like that. So yeah, internet connection is often quite slow because believe it or not, Friday is a very, very, very busy time for internet connections. You can see the traffic slowing down in rural communities because you know, people don't have social lives anymore. thing of the past. The nerds have won. Okay, so while that's cracking on, so it comes with Shotwell. We've seen that before. LibreOffice Evolution also, I believe that comes with Ubuntu. It used to come with Ubuntu. It may not anymore. Files. I'm going to assume it comes with Nautilus. Could very well be wrong there. I like how the taskbar and the buttons are embedded into the. They're all embedded into to save screen real estate. So that's not too bad. That's good there. There's empathy, evolution. How well is Firefox? Okay, so Firefox is looking like it holds a much more traditional. Oh, that doesn't look too friendly. Ah, there we go. Just a bit of a reload. So it gives you some announcements there, just on the Fedora project. Looks like you're using. So it gives you an upgrade to Firefox. Yeah, one of the sort of the issues that I kind of have had with GNOME 3 is that it does seem to still eat up a fair amount of screen real estate space. You can tell with like Nautilus and some of the other programs that are a bit more native to GNOME 3, where they try and give you as much screen space as possible. But on perhaps non-GNOME native programs, you kind of get this mess, which like you're all the way down there. You do not have that much space for browsing the web. That stuff. You could perhaps get rid of the menu bar. Maybe get full screen, who knows. Yeah, let's close them tabs. Okay, so it looks like the Software Center is just taking its time to load up, which is a little bit of a problem. I really would have liked to have gone through that today. This gives you a good list of your installed software though, and the bundles that it comes with. It's a standard bundle, but it's a safe bundle. You know that these kind of pieces of software work well together. A lot of them overlap in their repositories, dependencies rather than repositories. And all that kind of stuff. Comes with a firewall. You don't always get that. I've never had anywhere near the slightest hint of a virus problem with any of the Linux distributions, which is fantastic. I mean, admittedly, not a lot of people are developing malware and viruses for Linux distributions, but it's still not a stable operating system based on that. I mean, it probably is attacked by the more vehemently aggressive viruses because Linux is used to run on a lot of servers. So yeah, that's a little bit of a problem. That's a real shame with it loading up. Oh, yeah, here we go, actually, once we're further in. Okay, cool. So it comes with Battler Wesnoth. We all know and love that game. I really want to actually get into Battler Wesnoth. It looks like a group of people have put a real serious amount of time into that game, and it does deserve some recognition. Maybe a Let's Play might be in order for this one. Open Arena. Mines. These games are seriously dated now, and that's not a critique of Fedora, that's Linux games in general, because now that Steam's available for Linux, people are developing for cross-platform games, which I think is great because it means that their games are accessible to more people. Accessibility and inclusiveness are fundamental to the internet, life, and everything, isn't it, really? Okay, so Yep. This is all the same old software we've seen a million times before. I like how it's actually divided into, like, they've divided their games into subcategories, actually, which is something that Ubuntu don't do. Actually, admittedly, this software, barring the little hiccup with the preview things, GNOME, LibreOffice Draw, MyPaint, Scribus, Inkscape, Featured, 2D, yeah. Okay, actually, to be fair, this software manager is by far the best I've seen, actually, right out of the box. You've got your install software there. which means you can remove. Because a lot of people don't have, like, and I like the fact that, okay, you cannot remove these pieces of software, they're fundamental to the operating system, that's great. But yeah, this is great. A lot of operating systems, they don't make it easy for you to uninstall programs. This does. To keep a nice, clean, tight operating system, especially if disk space is at a premium, or if you just don't want a clutter of programs that you don't use, especially considering this menu system isn't the most friendly. Like, if you only want to use 8 programs, this GNOME 3 probably isn't too much of a hassle if you've got your 8 programs just on the left-hand side here. Disk usage analyzer, all this kind of stuff, yeah. Categories, add-ons. What would go in add-ons? Oh, codecs. Oh, okay. This is new. Fonts. Bloody brilliant. This is by far the easiest to navigate. So featured only Cheese and Pitavi. I know that Pitavi have been doing a lot of work on their video editor, and I must do a must give that a go. Editing. SO Master players. Where is Kdenlive? Qt record my desktop. GTK record my desktop. TV. Others. DivFix. Kdenlive. Where are you, Kdenlive? It ain't here. Jack Rack. It's got Jack. That's never. I gotta say, actually, I've not been the biggest fan of Jack. I know it's the best at what it can do in an open source environment, but I'd really wish that sound engineering on Linux was perhaps something that was pushed forward a little more. But yeah. All right. Well, I gotta say that's a bit of a disappointment. But in fact, I'm almost certain that's not a deal breaker, because if we go to Kdenlive.org, we can have a look at the options here. Yeah, there's a Fedora option right there. RPM Fusion. RPMfusion.com. So if you want to run a decent Fedora machine, you're going to need RPM Fusion. RPM Fusion provides software that the Fedora, Red Hat, Fedora project or Red Hat don't want to ship. It's provided with precompiled RPMs for all current blah 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 blah. So yeah, if you do want to run a Fedora desktop machine, get your butt down to rpmfusion.org. You'll want that. So, having trialed this OS now for a fair while, Virtual Machine Manager, gparted, emulators, VirtualBox Remote Client, DOSBox, can't go wrong with DOSBox, file managers. So in this particular, I think it probably also comes with a Synaptic Package Manager. It'll come with the RPM Yum, that's it, if I remember correctly. Settings. So we cracked open settings, maybe there might be a lot of monitor tools. Yeah, how they've divided down all these pieces of software is fantastic. It's great. It doesn't overclutter you as well. A lot of the time, the software install centers that come with the distributions, they often include like all of the programs. And when I say all of the programs that haven't been upgraded or maintained in 6 years, or any things like that, and that is something that we need to look at as well, is letting go of old software that's no longer maintained and doing so in a slightly more assertive manner, because there's a lot of choice on for the software that you can use in Linux distributions, and it's important to make sure that at least to not clutter those choices. Not basically, a lot of times in Linux you run the risk of having too much choice. and having to sift through a lot of crap to find some real gold gems in there. And it would be nice if perhaps some of the distributions, rather than just bundling all their software into their software centers, that they actually were a little more discerning, a little more curative. Is that the word I'm looking for? They acted slightly more as curators to the software in their libraries. Would be nice. Steam's got a lot of criticism for the same reasons, actually. So I'm pretty sure, like, you could probably, I'd be highly surprised if you don't, if it's not already installed, why you wouldn't be able to install Synaptic Manager. But I could sort of bumble around on this system for forever, and it probably wouldn't make a particularly good video. There's that little graphical glitch there. Truth be told, though, this hasn't inspired me to try out GNOME 3. But I like their bundled software. It's a safe pair of hands. I really do like their software manager. That's the best software manager I've seen, hands down. There aren't that many great. I mean, Synaptic's great if you know what you're looking for and if you are tech savvy. But if you are looking for a piece of software to do a specific job, and not even, you know, Synaptic's fantastic at that. If there was some way that was actually, you know, human curated and human sorted lists of software, as you saw in that package manager there that was included with Fedora, it would make life a lot easier. It's, you know, if you want a file manager, if you're not happy with the built-in file manager, if you're not happy with Nautilus, right, I want to see what my options are for file managers. Okay, click utilities, file managers, bang, it gives you a list of about 6. That's all you need. That's plenty of choice with a little description, maybe some screenshots. Maybe it'll give you enough info to Google it and then find out what people's opinions were on that, you know, side of things. In short, this is very much the Red Hat side of Ubuntu to me, and that's a compliment. It really is. If you're comfortable with sort of your RPM-based distributions, then no doubt you've already tried Fedora. But yeah, Fedora is a safe pair of hands. There are also plenty of distributions that use Fedora as a base, although admittedly they don't really come to the forefront very often. In fact, nowadays we do seem to be living in an age where Debian is the base for most operating systems. And again, like I say, Debian is my choice of base, but I also think that it's incredibly important to have variety and choice and options and competition. Yeah, too much of that can often be like reinventing the wheel, but in this particular case, Fedora and Ubuntu, Red Hat and Debian, they are two separate families that are both exploring Linux in their own ways, and both of them have a lot to offer, and it's, you know, it's good to try out both. So, like I say, best thing about Fedora here, definitely package management system. They improved that a lot since I was at university, and kudos to them for that. Was expecting to see GNOME 3 a little more mangled, a little more altered, changed, maybe some Fedora branding put on it or something. It does look like it's just the default looking GNOME 3. Nothing wrong with that. I was just expecting something a little more altered, but hey ho. It's good, yeah. If you're looking for an RPM distro to try, this is your guy. So that's about it for me today. Thank you very, very much for watching. If you guys have any suggestions on what distributions I should try out in the future, please let me know down in the comments section below. And until next time, I've been Chris Ware, and you've been awesome. Take care now.